Okay, we're going live. I will be monitoring both chat windows in Zoom and YouTube for you, and I will voice the questions or comments.
Okay.
So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is a session on threat model tool demos, and we will be focusing on Tutamantic. We have Geoff with us, whom you cannot see right now because his bandwidth had some problems, but yeah.
Just started happening when the rain started coming. I blame it on the rain.
Cables got wet.
Yes, that's right. The mice and the wires.
Maybe. Okay, let's start.
Okay, so I'm going to attempt to do this. Let's see if I can share anything out. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay. Well, all right.
And anyone, if you have any questions or comments or just want to contribute, feel free to unmute and contribute, because this is.
If you want to yell.
No yelling. Within the respect boundaries. We all respect each other.
There we go.
If we were on site at the actual summit, you would have been forced by the nature of the summit to contribute. So feel free to, don't be shy, basically.
Yeah, and I might even pick on somebody if I'm feeling particularly ornery, which I'm probably not. I'm feeling actually in a good mood today. So my name is Geoff Hill. I'm here on behalf of my company, Tutamantic. And so what I'm going to walk you through is I'm going to give you a quick background of the space right here, give you a problem space, give you a bit of an idea of what else I've done, the open source stuff, and then the tool, and then I'll do a demo of the tool, and then we'll kind of have Q&A and everything like that. So here we go. So the tool came about because most threat modeling is pretty heavy-handed, and I wanted a way of doing rapid prototyping but using the threat modeling techniques. So, it's a 4-step process here. Identify basic requirements, do a conceptual design, test a prototype, revise and enhance, wash and repeat. And I needed something like that in the threat modeling space, and I'm sure a lot of you people do, because what I've noticed is that threat modeling can take up a lot of your time, and you can end up doing a lot of different steps that end up not being useful because they never get repeated or anything like that. And it increases the frustration. So people end up not doing threat modeling, which is not really what we want. So I created something a number of years ago called Rapid Threat Model Prototyping. You guys can go find it on GitHub if you search for it. And I've done a number of talks. In fact, I did a talk, was it last year, Avi? I did a talk over in Tel Aviv talking about RTMP. And RTMP's kind of premise right here is that we create a consistent framework to run everything off of. We then we generate a repeatable process, so you can go out and you can, every time you do the process, it's the same thing. And you get measurable data back for it. And that way you can plug it into DevOps and into CI/CD pipelines a lot easier, into Agile. So the Tutamin is just an extension of that, and it's just an automation of that, really. I mean, it's very basic. Rapid Threat Model Prototyping has, the purpose of it is kind of the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. You want to do 20% of the effort, get 80% of the results. And you want to keep on iterating through that. So you're going to keep on iterating through and getting closer and closer to the answer, but you don't really want to, you're not planning on getting the full answer because you don't want to spend that much time going for the full-blown waterfall type full answer. You want to start the conversation, kick the conversation off, and just get just enough information that you can move to the next step. So it'll eventually become comprehensive, but not initially. So how does Tutamin fit in this? Well, Tutamin, or the RTMP, which is based upon, sits in the planning stage of a DevOps kind of relationship right here, but it does affect a number of other different areas. So for example, obviously the creating area. So if you start developing code, one of the things that a good threat model should do is it should provide you with the mitigations to which you build into the plan, into the design, so that you don't actually generate them during the code. So the code that the people developing will look at that and say, okay, we've got a bunch of patterns here. We'll use these patterns, and these patterns then will prevent us from making actual core mistakes in the code, not implementation errors or anything like that. It also has a secondary effect on the dev side of things of helping people to do verification. So if you have a number of different verification tools out there, I'm thinking of, for example, Selenium's an old one, but Selenium's just the first one that came to my head right there, is you can write in rules that will test to see if the threats you've found in the threat model are valid or not. On the ops side of things, during the release, you can use the results of the threat model to say, well, are we going to release this code or not? Has it fit into our threat model threats and our mitigations? Have we resolved what we need to resolve before we're pushing this code? And then during the monitoring phase, obviously, you can see if the issues that are coming up during the monitoring, security monitoring, if they tie back to the threat model, then maybe you didn't do a good enough job, or maybe you have to go back and you have to figure out, okay, look, we've got to integrate the threat model results in a bit better than next time.
May I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure. Go back.
Is that the correct spelling there of Tutaman?
Yes, yes. It's actually Latin. So I completely made up Tutamantic, and Tutamantic is a stem. It's a connection of two different words. Latin is tutamen, which is how it's spelled right there, which means a guardian, and mantic is a Greek stem for a diviner of. So it literally means diviner of guardians. So a tutamen, that's the model itself.
Oh, okay. Just making sure that I was going to the right place. All right, thank you.
Yeah. So we carry on. Now, the threat modeling steps that I espouse when doing the Tutamantic model, and also the RTMP underneath it, is you take a current architectural model. You don't generate a data flow diagram or anything like that, but you use a context or process diagram that an architect has already made, because the architects generally have a better idea of what's going on in the architecture than we do. And then we can use their expertise to get the best of breed model. Now we take that model right there, we add security metadata. Generally as a team exercise, we add security metadata to that model. One is we block it out by different zones of criticality. How critical are these different zones to the operation? And that implicitly means how critical are they in terms of security. I say implicitly because it's not supposed to be explicit, because you want the team to get involved, and the team is supposed to say, well, this is more critical than the other one, and get them involved in a whole process. You then add security attributes on top of that, and I've created a metadata language for this. In the RTMP, you use Stride. In the Tutaman threat modeling tool, I actually have a much richer language you can use to describe things. Then you upload it to the SaaS endpoint, the Tutaman SaaS endpoint. You get back the results, you analyze those results, you update the model, and then you upload it back to Tutaman. And you do this a number of different times, potentially 3 or 4 different times, maybe 5 or 6, until you get to a point where you like what you have. And then that becomes a model that you publish out to the developers and to the testers. And then they use the results of that to basically build in patterns into their development or into the design. And then the testers will use that to create test cases. So let's take a look at the zones of trust, because that's the first thing that we said we'd add to it. And again, I pulled this from RTMP, but it's a fairly simple way of doing things. If you look at the list that I have right here, the 0 will represent that it's not in control of the system that you're modeling. A 1 will represent some kind of a boundary element. And that boundary element could be anything from a web application firewall to a web server, something that's intentionally designed to communicate to things outside of your system. Then you have lows, which will be between 2 and 3, mediums 4 and 5, highs 6 and 7, and criticals 8 and 9. What you're looking for is where data hits the disk. So if the data hits the disk in data stores, obviously, S3 servers, that kind of S3 buckets, that kind of thing, then you're going to want to designate those as 8 and 9 probably, because they're going to be the most critical areas, because that's generally where the bad guy wants to go to get the data. So that gives you kind of a rough idea of how you go about putting the zones in. Next, you use a descriptive metadata language. And now I've shown this. This is kind of a rough outline. It's got a lot more elements to it. And I can kind of, hopefully I can flash over and show you guys a little bit here, but my connection hasn't been exactly, it's been pretty temperamental. So everything is an element inside of the metadata language, and it defaults to that. And elements have their own issues, have their own weaknesses. From that, it breaks down into processes and data flows. And then also it breaks down into different parts. So the parts are below the data flows. So you have authentication elements, you have authorization, management, crypto, sensitive data, validation, auditing, and a number of other ones, and they break down. And they break down, for example, with authentication by dot notation. So I've given 2 examples here: authentication method certificate, authentication token, for example, OpenID Connect, authorization token OAuth2. So you start describing the document that you have in front of you, the design that you have in front of you, by putting this metadata language in there. And then in addition, I've shown 2 examples of different processes. You can designate things as being process data store, and that way it'll give you a certain number of elements in process AWS S3, for example. So that's that part done right there. Are there any questions before I dive into my demo?
There weren't any in the chat, but
Okay.
if anybody has anything, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Okay, so I'm assuming that there isn't anything there. So let's carry on. Let's take a look at a very simple drawing. This is extremely simple, so please don't like rake me over the coals for this, but I want to just show the basics of it in a very simple bit. We have a user up here. The user will connect up to a web app, a front-end web app. This will be our, front-facing web app. And then it'll connect up to another web app, and that web app eventually will connect up to a data store. And then you've got an admin over here, and the admin connects up to all 3 of these different elements right here. I've shown the admin. You don't need to model the admin if you don't want. Obviously, sometimes we don't in our threat models. Sometimes we do. In this particular case, I'm just showing the admin to show the different areas and to show that admin has a direct line to the data store right here, and it'll come out in the threat model. So initially, I'm looking on each one of these. Go ahead.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt, but we are still on the slide screen. If you want.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah. Okay. Let me stop sharing.
Probably.
Yeah. Let me
You might be sharing only the window and not the whole desktop.
Yeah, let's try that again. Do you see it now?
Thank you, Mario.
Okay, excellent. Okay,
Yep.
let me start again. Apologies for that. The demo gods are not happy with me. So the upper section right here I've created is a user. The user will call into a series of web apps, one web app here, one web app there, and then down to a data store. And the admin on the side right here, the admin connects up to all 3 of these things because that person's an admin. So the reason I put an admin in here is to show that this can be a very dangerous connection right here from admin down to data store. So the first thing we do is we'll take a look at each one of these elements, and we can take a look at, by hovering over this, we know different attributes that I've put into the elements so far. If I hover this right here, I put in zone 2, and in this one I put in zone 3. And we can actually add data to this. So assume that an architect created this. Hopefully an architect didn't create this actual one, but assume an architect created this, and they created it in draw.io, and then they want you to put your security metadata into it. So what you'll do is you sit down with them, maybe sit down with the team who's planning on developing this, and you'll have a discussion with them, and you'll click on the edit data link, and you'll add attribute information right here into the actual diagram. Now, in this case right here, I put in zone 1 because this particular web app is fronting the big bad world. The user is zone 0. They're outside of my control. I'm not touching the data flows because the data flows will take the origin zone. The web app right here, this particular web app right here, I've put in as zone 2, funny enough. And then finally, the data store I put in as zone 3, just for argument's sake, but I can put it in higher. Potentially, I can put in at zone 9, according to my designation, like so. So the next thing that I'd like to do is we want to add information to this. So I've just taken a few elements right here, and well, first thing, let's take a look and let's run this basic model that we have right here. Let's save it and run this basic model, and I'll show you how it goes up and it connects up and all that right there. So let's save it, and it's saved locally. And then we go to the Tutamantic site, and I will take and I'll upload this. Okay, and then the next thing it does is it's basically now pulling through, and as you see, it's telling me that these different reports are pending. The Tutaman will provide a JSON report, HTML report, and CSV report. Not only does it present to this HTML page you see right here, but also I have an API endpoint. So you can pull down these different reports directly via an API call instead of going to the website and doing it. But I also have option for the website. So it takes about a minute to go through and to finish this up. In the meantime, while we have that right there, let's just see if I can show you the mitigations. So here's an example of like a list of mitigations that I have. I map it up to the CWE. So I have the CWE elements right here tying back to the various frame elements. And in addition, I have the stride that it ties up to. And I don't think I have that on this particular thing. I have it online. So let's just see. Okay, now we're up. We have the HTML. We download this HTML right here to show you what the report looks like. And this is what the initial report looks like. So since I didn't put anything into this particular design right here, it's going to show me a whole bunch of different issues, and they're all generic issues because they don't go into any detail. It tells me that that flow one, which is data flow, which is user to web app to data store, that this particular data flow right here has no authentication method defined on it, which we didn't put any on it. And then it tells me also here, in addition, so that's the no authentication method defined on it. Then we have on the connections right here, it tells me what the attributes that I put on there. Well, by default, the system puts on element and data flow onto each one of these, an element and process onto each one of the processes. And then it comes up with just standard issues that you might find, such as in this case right here, it complains that there's no authentication subsystem, and it tells me that authentication is needed. Now, this is just generic information because we didn't put anything in, so it's not particularly helpful at this point in time. So you might want to go back and iterate through and say, well, look, we might want to get more information on this. But it shows my listing right here. It shows a data store. It shows a number of different issues, poor cryptographic system, weakness and exception errant, because we haven't defined anything. So it's not going to find anything there. And it tells me again, there's no authentication method defined on this either, and no authentication method defined on this. So it has a total of 4 flows. And then each one of the flows, it goes through and it shows us the different elements that go through. So in this case right here, admin to web app to data store is another one. That's one of the flows. If you see, take a look right here, admin to web app to data store right here. So that's the initial. Oh yeah, whoever said that they're working on privacy models, if you've heard of Linden, that's the one I was looking for right there. So that might be something for you to take a look at.
Yeah, we just had a session with them, I believe it was yesterday.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and it's really cool. It's very similar. There's a lot of the same kind of aspects. I'm also looking at things in terms of like actually performing investigations, sock puppets, that type of thing.
Yep.
How to make sure how to reduce the threats in those kinds of situations. So.
And they also mentioned the privacy threat modeling should not be done alone. It should be accompanied by a security one, because they're relying on the security threat modeling for the information disclosure, for example.
Yeah. It appears that the demo gods are already annoyed at me. Let's try this out again. Okay.
Okay.
Log me out. There we go.
Show us your password.
Yeah. That's a demo one. Okay, so now we have, I'm going to download the CSV file here. And to show you what the different files look like. And I'm going to download the the CSV file. and download the JSON file. Okay, and let's just take a look at these.
And in the meantime, Mario's saying he's been teaching both the rapid threat model prototype and Linden Go with customers. So that in the same session, it gives everyone the same vocabulary to discuss security and privacy. But doesn't that require for the audience to understand a bit of both?
I think
threat modeling, maybe.
Yeah, with Stride is a very easy thing to teach, and that's why I've fallen back on using Stride now, because it's incredibly easy to teach anybody in an audience within 10, 15 minutes what the concepts are. Linden is a bit more complex, but once you get the people and give them a grounding in Stride, and you give them a grounding maybe in OWASP Top 10, then you can kind of layer a Linden on top of that once they get an idea of what the privacy factors are and everything like that. But it definitely it will help to enrich people. Think of it more as an awareness thing. Is that you want to put out there and you want to say, look, you don't have to be experts in Linden, but we want you to be aware in the different aspects of privacy. And then people will go into it and they say, well, we may not remember it, but what we can do is we can go to a website, we can download it, we can refer to it on a crib sheet or something like that and get to know it. So I'm a big fan of Linden. I haven't included privacy modeling in this. This is merely threat modeling for security and not privacy modeling. So what you see right here is the CSV file that I generated from the threat model. And it's got a number of things like, the type and everything like that. Basically what this means is that you can fool around with the data that you get very quickly. In addition, I'm going to save that. So I'm going to minimize this. In addition, I have the JSON. And the JSON, I'm going to open up a notepad for the moment. Let's see if that's nice and formatted. It's not formatted well, which I didn't think it was going to be. But that's why I have this open to do formatting. Where is it? There we go. And format. And this is the JSON you get back. So you get back all the information right here again. You get the weakness subject. You get the weakness description, a more full description. And then you get the mitigation subject if there's a mitigation description, if there are multiple mitigations that run through this. And you find all that information being sent to you, plus all the links and everything like that. So in case you want to use that, you can pull that raw data out and you can plug that into your own processes in the back end, in addition to having the HTML report right here that you can run. So if we go back to here, then we say, okay, let's add some stuff to this particular model. Now we know I'm just going to add authentication method certificate onto this. And I'm going to say, okay, look, I know that I had authentication issues across of here. So if I add the authentication right here, and let's say I do certificate-based authentication right here, just for argument's sake, and let's say that I do against the database server, although that's kind of meaningless. Now let's hold off on that. So if we do this right here, and then I'm going to save this file. There we go. Things are going a bit slow. Okay, and then we take that and go back here. We'll go upload. We'll upload our new file, which I have to find. There we go. And now we go through the same thing as we do the upload. I've added some more information to it. What I'll get is I'll get back a different report. I'm going to clear out all these files right here so we don't confuse them. Like so. And we'll now wait. Now I have it right here. Let's just see if I have any questions or anything. I have, I guess, a number of questions or not. Chat. Here we go.
Yeah, we're just chatting.
I'm just chatting. I haven't even taken a look at it, what's going on there. So
and there's chat, but not question.
Okay. All right, so we have download right here, so then we can download the HTML. And let's take a look at it. And then if we take a look at it, you notice now we no longer have it complaining that it's unauthenticated. However, we do have it complaining that that's unauthenticated against this particular flow, which is admin to data store, because we never did an authentication against that. And it's not complaining against this one right here, which is admin to web app to data store, and it's not complaining on the admin to web app to data store. So the threat model is still complaining. It's still telling us that we need to authenticate against. We need to have some kind of authentication method done against going from admin onto the data store. And as you notice right here, we haven't done anything beyond that. We've taken the authentication mode certificate at the web app level, and you notice we have a bunch of different issues that have come up that now we need to take a look at. Weak trust chains, private key compromise, potential CA compromise, forwarding, compromise revocation. And those pass on to the data flow right here, all those issues. So in that case right there, what we want to do now is we want to get out of this, and let's go back and let's add some more information to this. Let's just say that we want to add some authorization onto this. So we go right here, edit data, add use of OAuth 2. Here, and then add the use of OAuth 2 onto this too. As you notice right here, it's going to say it's authorization, not authentication. So it's still going to complain that we don't have an authentication set up from admin to the data store. But what it'll do now is it'll remove the authorization issues, but at the same time, it'll introduce new issues that are based upon that method. So the whole idea behind this is that if I put in a control or I put in a mitigation, that mitigation itself may cause other weaknesses. And it depends on when I stop, because every mitigation is not perfect. And that's the concept behind this right here. So if we click to upload, and we'll go and upload and pending. So does anyone have any questions so far? Am I going too fast or anything like that? I've overrun my time, by the way, too, but.
No, our sessions are 2 hours long, so don't worry.
What?
So a question,
Yeah.
Mario. So all of that kind of relies on us having the process whereby we add the right elements of metadata to the diagram itself, right?
Yes. So basically what you're going to be, the responsibility is that, oh, by the way, hi, Mario. The responsibility is on the security person to properly put the controls that they think should be in the certain areas. So they're basically just they're adding what they think should be on the model, on the design. I mean, if they do it wrong, it'll come out. You'll see that there will be different issues cropping up in different areas that probably shouldn't be there. So you'll take note of that. Does that answer your question, Maria?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
I would imagine there's a documentation saying what are all of the.
Yeah, I'm not showing you the documentation. I've got quick start guides.
Yep.
I've got documentation made up that people can run through. The quick start guide is very simple. You just go through and you do a very simple mock-up right there and then carry on. And then you can obviously get more complex, put more complex models on once you have the confidence of that and everything.
Yep, thanks.
Okay.
I might have missed a little part. Where did we define the trust zone and boundaries?
Okay. So the trust zone and boundaries, like I don't define trust boundaries graphically in this. What I do is I define them against the different objects. So in each object, I have metadata associated with each object. And you'll notice right here, the zone element right here is where I define the trust zone. And it's a numerical ranking. It's relative to the diagram. It's not absolute. So this diagram right here, just because I put in a data store, I put in a number 9 at this point, doesn't mean that that's as critical as another data store in another diagram. It just means relative to this diagram, it's the most critical element that we know of.
The bigger the number?
The bigger the number, the more critical it is. The lower the negative number on this side, which I haven't shown you, if I wanted to put a negative number on the user right here, I could then model, I could model malicious characters, malicious actors. 0 just means they're not in my control. Negative numbers means they can potentially be malicious. So if we go back to the HTML again to show you, and we click save, and we open the
So
file.
how does that work with zero trust?
I'm sorry?
How
With
does
zero
that
trust.
work with zero trust?
Oh, it's not, see, it's not trust per se, it's more criticality. So
Yeah,
the reason
like
I call it trust, but what I'm trying to point out right here is, I'll go back to the diagram. What I'm trying to point out is I'm trying to point this not just for us as security professionals, but also for people in my development teams. So when I sit down with a development team to try to tell trust to them, sometimes doesn't actually most of the times it gets garbled in the translation. I don't even try to talk about zero trust at that point. So what I try to get to is I try to tell them, look, let's get the architect involved. Let's architect out what you're trying to develop. Let's design out what you're trying to develop. And then let's figure out from your point of view, with me helping you, what are the most critical parts of the particular application or particular module that you're developing out. And you'll be surprised. I mean, the developers, actually, I'm not surprised anymore, but developers are, they're astute people. And what they'll do is they'll go down and they'll pick the right areas and they'll say, okay, this is more critical than the other ones. And I'll say, why is that? And I'll kind of challenge them. And then they'll get the numbers and they'll say, okay, or maybe I won't challenge them. And they generally get it right. The broad idea is, if it's outside of our control completely, such as the user right here, then it's a 0 or less, and in the model. And the same as the admin's the same value. The admin's a 0 right here. Anything that's inside of our model, if it's intentional to be connected up to the external outside of this particular design, then it's a 1. It could be a 2. It could be anything higher. It depends upon what the criticality that your team and you think it should be. And sometimes I've seen things where I've seen web API endpoints or API endpoints being 3s, 4s, or 5s because they've deemed it to be a critical endpoint. In which case, when that happens, then other things happen, such as you get more severity on that. And then finally, the data store. The data store, generally recommended to put the data store because it's where data hits the disk. It's where the malicious parties want to go to attack initially. They'd love to get to that data. And generally, I cap it out at about 9. I mean, you can go higher than 9 if you want, but it really doesn't make any sense in most diagrams. 9 usually works. So that's why I've left it open-ended, but my recommendation is that you use the ranking that I have just to show the criticality of the different objects.
So,
and the criticality, go ahead.
Yeah, the criticality and trust are very different. So do you want to rename the zone to criticality or have
that's why I call it
attributes?
That's why I call it zone. I call it zones of trust because that's what I started off by calling it, from the original derivative from trust zones from the original threat modeling that Adam Shostak did. So it just kind of stuck with it. I mean, it's a rebranding effort. You're right, and I should probably take a look at it.
The way it stands, it looks like you really trust this data store, that nothing could go wrong there.
No, it's not that, because then if I did that, then a threat model would be pointless. Do you know what I mean? In this case right here, it's more the data store is the most critical aspect of this right here. So you're right. I mean, that's something that I can take a look at. And I think in that case right here, for general threat modeling, like viewing threat models, that I think trust zones are actually a misnomer these days too, that they're actually zones of criticality.
Cool.
So does anyone
I
have
do
any
think it's
questions?
interesting.
I'm sorry.
I was thinking about different ways perhaps of kind of categorizing the
controls or the threats, or
because if you start getting if you start making the system larger, if you start making it larger, then it's going to be something that you're going to have to expand more, and you're going to want different kind of categories of
exactly
not just criticality, but of like okay, this these are of the same type, these are of the same type, these are of the same type,
Yes,
that kind of thing as well.
Exactly. And let me just see, cross fingers here. Let me just see if I can get you guys to see how I set up the data back here. And I'm just hoping that I don't all of a sudden go pixelated on you. So bear with me for a moment. I'm going to try to get into my remote. I'm going to try to remote desktop into my other work machine right here. That's why I've taken off. And let's just see if we can do this.
Oh, come on. You don't want to show us what that process looks like from your side right now?
You don't want to see the sausage making?
No passwords, none of that.
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's the fun part.
Yeah, I'll show you all that background stuff, right? Okay, here we go.
Just gonna tell it that there's no passwords.
I don't believe in passwords. Power to the people. Okay. So this right here just shows one of the views that I've created. And this is showing on one side, you see the frame name right here and the different frame names going down. And then it maps to the weaknesses, and then the weaknesses map to a multiple of mitigations. The frames themselves, here's a kind of a quick setup right here. Here's one of the different frame databases that I have. So I've broken it down by dot notation. So you can actually take and you actually keep on continuously breaking it down into more and more specific elements that we work through. And then those map together and they map directly through the weaknesses, and then they map into the mitigations. And they map them, I just do them by mapping tables like that.
I see.
So I think I stunned everyone to silence there, hey?
I'm just admiring how clean your VS Code looks.
That's not my code. This right here? Oh God, no. My Visual Studio Code's a mess. I'm not going to show you that. I'm not going to subject anyone to that. I call myself a developer, but I think real developers would laugh at me. My days of developing are kind of more in management these days and everything like that. But no, I mean, it's the whole thing is run on the cloud. I've got an API management endpoint onto it, so you can connect up directly, or you've got the HTML web page. You can go up and you can connect up via this too. If anyone's interested in using this, who's on this call right here, send me a, let's go back to actually what I can do potentially. Let's just go like this. I think I've left my email address there, but just in case I haven't, you can send an email to jeff.hill@tutamantic.com right here. And let me see if I can copy that into, I'm going to stop sharing here so I can get access to this. Yep. Thank you. Okay.
That's correct? The one
that is correct. Yes. And if anyone is interested in playing around with this and using this in anger, then send me an email and I'll get you onboarded and we can start using it.
Yes, so I'm looking at your GitHub repo.
Yep. That is for the rapid threat model prototyping. And I strongly encourage everyone to pick up RTMP. And because RTMP is it's an easy way, it's completely open source, and it's an easy way for people to kind of go out there and introduce companies into threat modeling very quickly. I currently have Capita and BBC are using it in anger, plus a few banks in London are using it. So
let me just paste that GitHub as well.
There we go. So are there any other questions or anything like that, guys?
So a question, do you need to develop the model with draw.io?
No, I've got two options right now. I'm working on lucid charts. The ultimate idea is I'm going to have a number of different endpoints, but right now draw.io and Visio are my two endpoints, and lucid charts right now we're working through, but we haven't got it production ready yet.
Okay, thanks.
So in addition, I think we looked at other things like Glyphy and all that, but it becomes problematic with Glyphy because it can't store data inside the Glyphy objects, at least not that I know of. So if anyone has out there, if they say, look, this is my favorite tool or something like that, then ping me, we can look into it and we can make a connector for it. But right now we're going to start off with just two, which is Draw.io, and Visio.
Great. So if you were to sum up the prerequisites to use this tool,
RTMP.
what would they be?
To use this tool, understanding probably RTMP might help. I'll just put that in there. So RTMP might help to get an understanding of how to connect up, how to connect up the zones that we have, which I will rename, and to also how to use Stride to figure out the different areas. The other thing too is that when you're talking with your team, this is a team exercise. So one of the things I strongly encourage anybody to do is don't do threat models in isolation. Do them with your development team. And to sit down with your development team, sit down with your architect, reuse the architect's models. Don't draw your own, although you can obviously draw your own. But I would recommend, it's just, to me, it's just extra work that you're going to put on yourself. So use the architect's models, get the architect involved, get the other developers involved, the other stakeholders involved, your security champions involved, make this a group exercise and add the data as per the group, add the data into the model. Then push it up, bring back the results, discuss, add more information, add more metadata to it, and keep doing this iteratively. And then you come to a certain point and say, we like where the threat model sits right now, and then that becomes the final threat model, and then that becomes the advice, the pattern advice that you give to your developers, and then the threats become the advice you give to your testers to see if they can poke holes in it. It's one thing that about Zoom calls and everything like that is if everyone's silent, it's just deathly silent. So let's see if I can get my video back on.
Yeah.
All
and
right.
I was on mute and I was talking.
I've done that plenty of times too. So I want to thank everyone who's joined me here. There's actually quite a few, and thank you very much. If reach out to me afterwards, send an email to me, and I'm more than happy to connect up with you. And if it's and send the email to me on RTMP also, because I as Avi knows, I love gassing on about that, and Mari also knows about that. But the RTMP is a foundation. All that this does, the automation does, is it speeds things up. It's an automation tool, and it speeds things up, and it makes it so you can go out there and actually produce threat models, and you can actually take the data that you get back there potentially, and you can feed it back into the system. A lot easier than with current threat models, because I try to standardize everything. And by standardizing things, then I can start passing around data, and I can start using that data, as I said beforehand, for a measurable manner. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. Questions, comments?
Silence.
Any controversial points?
Well, you've already brought up one controversial point. You said, I don't think they should be called trust. I was like, yeah, you make a good point about that. So I will update that.
It's a newcomer to the threat modeling world.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's when you talk about trust zones, it is a very threat modeling kind of thing, and yeah, the name probably should change.
Everything changes, evolves, don't they?
They do, exactly. It evolves. So, anyone else? Just deathly silence.
Kind of running through everything that, seeing what I find in the RTMP.
Oh, in the RTMP, okay, yeah. There's a lot of different presentations and everything there. You can also search on YouTube for my presentations that I deliver on RTMP.
Yeah,
Okay.
all of it's been very interesting. I keep, of course, from my strangely unique perspective, perhaps, in coming to this, I keep coming to the place of thinking about how I could reverse engineer the process and make it work for my particular unique interests. But yeah, so that's what I've been thinking about a little bit. It's interesting.
Oh, excellent. I just noticed a comment from Mario saying an online game would be brilliant. And I just, if anyone's interested, I still have a couple of cards. I created a card game for threat modeling which is different from the Elevation of Privilege game that you guys know about. So if anyone's interested, I might be able to scare up a pack of cards that I have left over, and they can play that. So
That would be nice.
Mario, I knew you'd pick up on that.
I think you should, yeah, you should join the card game channel we have on Slack, because there is some good work going on there.
Someone would elevate privilege on me probably and take all my money. So,
Well, I mean, it's about developing a card game for threat modeling.
yeah. Oh,
Developing.
excellent. Yeah, I mean, I have one made up. I've toyed around with the idea because, you know, there is a lot of game theory that goes into attackers and how attackers go about attacking systems. And all of the social engineering aspect of it is a lot of that is game theory. And so I find that to be fascinating, the psychological aspect.
I mean, honestly, for the most part, if you only approach it from the social engineering and game theory perspective, owning everything is only as simple or is only as complex as what it takes to, I mean, to be able to set up a few bots or to be able to, you know, it's only as complex as the social engineering problem at hand, which is not that hard. People are easily swayed. So
well, it's interesting you say that too, Wallaby Curtis, because a friend and I were discussing that most of the attacks we see these days are really just variations of attacks that have existed since the 1970s and 1960s against computer systems. There are very rarely totally new attacks that come out there. And people can argue with me about that, and listen, I'm open up to that right there. But I think the vast majority of them will fall in. And I think the CVE and the CWE are testament to that you see these massive trees that have come off from high-level attack concepts. And I think the fact that Stride has remained relevant to this day from its first creation in 2003, I think is another testament to the fact that the attack methodologies haven't changed that much. It's just the vectors have changed or the tactics have changed, that kind of thing. And a new group of people have come into the scene without getting any security training, which partly drives security professionals crazy and partly keeps us at work, and still drives us crazy because we have to train a whole new level of people.
yeah, and I personally kind of like the altered version, the striped.
Striped. Okay, what's the?
It's with the addition of privacy.
Yep. And that's so Daniel from I forget his last name, from BBC. He was working on that too, and I'm actually thinking of kind of putting that back into, because he and I had long discussions, because I teach RTMP, and I'm thinking of going back to RTMP and seeing if I can kind of change it around, which I probably can very easily, and change it to striped and then move on from there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be actually. It'd be very cool. So any other questions from anybody?
Is there any questions from you to us?
From me to you?
I
guess.
Are you looking for contributors and stuff?
Yes.
What's next steps for Tutamantic?
I would love to get people to, at the end of this right here, to send me an email. I haven't checked my emails, but to send me some emails and say, look, I'd like to get signed on. And what I'll do for you guys is I'll give you guys, as part of a group right here that's taking, that's listening to this, I'll give you guys a whole bunch of free uploads to play around with this and everything like that, and to come back with updates and everything like that. But I would love to get feedback from people using it in the field, because right now I've only got a few people using it in the field in a few areas, and the more the merrier to come back with information, what kind of tools they'd like to see in the tool chain, what they'd like to see for modifications to the threat modeling language that I created, the metadata language, what they'd like to see in addition to that right there, what kind of feedback they'd like to get from the threats themselves or from the mitigations, things like that. I'd love to get feedback right now. And so asking you guys as security professionals and in the field, it'd be great to get your feedback. It'd be great to get you testing this and playing around with the product and using it. And, for you guys, because I love you so much and I love all of you guys, I'm willing to, I'll give you guys, let's say 50 uploads each if you sign up and everything like that. That's very kind. That's because I like you guys so much.
Yeah, I'm a consultant, so.
Hey Jeff, what's the actual rates for actual corporate clients?
So for the actual rate, the rack rate for this is $50 per upload.
Wow.
And right now at this point in time, I'm creating it. I'm keeping it as basic. If corporate clients want to come afterwards and want to talk, what I'd like to try to do is I'd like to try to get people to work with it, to use it. And then if they say, look, we want to have an all-you-can-eat kind of option, then we can kind of discuss on that afterwards. But the basic rack rate is $50 per upload, which is around 37 pounds, I think, per upload.
And I have another question.
Yeah.
So I actually have your card game. And by the way, the artwork on it is beautiful. but the rules are not clear. Do you have prepared rules for the game?
I do, and I'll send them on to all and sundry who are interested. Avi, I'll send you a copy, mate.
Awesome.
Let me put that in my notes.
I actually totally forgot about it when you said it.
Is it also called Tutamantic? Well, what do you call the card?
It's very stupid, just the threat model game. Sometimes I'm not that creative. I think the most creative thing I got is the name of my product and the name of my company, and then it kind of went downhill from there.
Well, and how you spell your first name, but you know.
I could say Jeff's threat model game.
Cool. And Petra's saying she's missed the first part.
Oh, okay. Apologies.
We are live on YouTube. You can check it from there, but still you can also email Geoff, and he's a good guy.
I'm a good guy. I'd like to think I am. I think I know quite a number of people right here from looking at the list. I see Stephen has kind of popped in, and of course Avi and Mario and Didier. I know you guys, but there are quite an NA not applicable.
We do have NAs in every session almost.
Well, I was JBI. I still am JBI, so there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
I know that some on the call are also security architects, etc. So I'm a very big fan of RTMP, and I've used it with all of my customers for a long time.
You're my hero, Mario.
A few months back, 3 or 4, for those using SAP's enterprise architecture, I have a fork. I don't think it's been integrated into the main branch of RTMP. I don't know.
I'll take a look at it. I'll make a note. I'll take a look.
I've updated the spreadsheet with all of these, all of the threats, etc., and mapped them into business attributes from SAPSA.
Okay.
So that is something that it's a fork that you can find from RTMP if that interests anyone.
Great. Okay, then I'll take a look at it, Mario, and I can bring it back into the main thing. I can fold the fork back in if you want. Okay. Any other questions or anything like that? You guys have been a wonderful audience, and this is. I'm still getting used to delivering these online sessions because the feedback just isn't there. But that's the COVID world, isn't it?
It is challenging, yes.
It is, yes, yes. It's funny because I'm used to delivering, online on-site training sessions, and generally a lot of times what I'll do is since security is a dry subject anyways, I'll play some short funny videos by this guy James Veach, who has a lot of funny things. You can look him up on YouTube, and I'll get feedback from people laughing and all that right here, but I couldn't do it here because it wouldn't translate. I mean, people say, why are you playing a video? That kind of thing. So.
And when you play a video, sometimes it gets copyright claim.
Yes, and then I get slapped at that. I get litigated into non-existence.
No, not you, but our YouTube channel.
Oh, right, that too. Yeah, we got to be careful about that.
And thanks, Geoff, for the talk. It was very useful. I don't know if you remember, but we met way back at a threat modeling meetup. It was run by Fraser a while back.
Yes, I remember that. Yes. Okay.
So it's good to see the evolution of the rapid threat modeling, and certainly I'd be interested in giving it a try and a whirl and see. So that's good. Great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I look forward to connecting with you guys by email.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.